Wonderful to meet you. And I want to begin our story with this. 5 years ago, this pandemic was changing all of our lives, doing
Mm.
so many things for all of us all over the planet. How did you get through that time period in 2020? And how has it influenced or affected the way that you live your life today?
Wow, this is like throwback, Joe.
Right, it is. Retro yet modern.
I love it. I haven't thought about this in so long. I think the biggest disruption in 2020 for me was with my pediatric practice. So I've been a pediatric physician, entrepreneur I'm in my 23rd year. So at that time, what was super disruptive for me is that, well, no one was coming into the office anymore. So it felt sort of like a little mini mini death, to be honest, because those kids are really they bring me life. And so I felt like mama was disconnected from her kids in a way, honestly. So that was probably like the biggest life disruption for me. And it turned into, of course, like a silver lining, which is running majority of my business. And now all of my pediatric nutritional consulting business is online. It's right here. I'm in my office. And I think it's been great for myself and the patients alike. I think it really helped us transform another way of connecting, another way of communicating, making it easier. Like some parents even voice, wow, this is incredibly easy for my anxious child now. Don't have to, create this whole thing. They can just stay in the comfort of their home.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's probably like the first thing I thought of when you asked that question.
I know with my son that it was very relieving. He's on the spectrum. So to get into that
Mm,
mode of get the anticipation, the drive, the going there, and most of the time it would be talking to the parents and just all of that. And you got to wait usually, like you just get around all of that. It's like it's the best possible
exactly.
thing. So
Yes.
let's get into exactly what you do on a daily basis. I'm going to put you in front of a bunch of 12-year-olds. It's career day. The kid in the back of the room is like, "Hey, what do you do for a living?" What's your answer?
My kids would always say, Mom's a pediatrician. I'm a pediatrician. That is definitely my first calling. I'm a pediatric physician, and I focus my practice on nutrition. So it's holistically based, like functional, what we call functional medicine these days. I started it 23 years ago. I am also now, though, also a coach for midlife women, women in their 40s, 50s, and 60s, primarily around relationships, but any aspect of life, but relationships are kind of my jam. So helping women transition through, um, anything really, just the transition of midlife. It kind of reminds me of adolescence, to be honest. Like stretchy, pulley, uncomfy, hormones changing,
Yeah.
identities shifting, relationships changing. Yeah, there's just so much going on. So, yeah.
How did all of those years of being in the pediatric world lend you to this knowledge and this epiphany to help women in their midlife? How
Mhm.
did those kind of feed off of each other and become this focal point for you now?
I would like to say it was just like boom, it happened, but it took me about 20 years to get here. It was an evolution, Joe, of just following the breadcrumbs. A lot of moms would say, how can you help me, Dr. Sue? You've helped my child. How can you help me? Meaning, like they were thinking, be a functional medical doctor for adults, right? And I knew that just wasn't really in my heart. So it was really about me following my heart, like, okay, well, I like nutrition. So can I help them with nutrition, right? I like these products. Can I help them get on these products, right? Um, yeah, I also like started a nonprofit for parents. And so it was just this evolution of like, try it on. Does it feel good? Okay, maybe not so much. Let's put that back on the rack.
Yeah.
How does this feel? Right. And then finally, about a handful of years ago, I landed in where I am now, which is, coaching women. And when I landed there, I was like, wow, I'm in my lane, Jane. Like this is definitely feels good for me, feels good for them, is for the greater good, because it's all about the ripple effect of impacting children and the world, to, I mean, I think of it as like up leveling, like
Yeah.
bringing more love.
So let me ask you this. What did you want to be at 12 years old? What was your dream job?
At 12, I want to be a medical doctor.
Okay, so it's always been medicine. I noticed, especially with my son, his pediatric doctor, his name was Dr. Metzel, and he was just universally respected and loved. And there's a touch There's like when people pick professions, there's a specific way. Like realtors just always have. They're kind of like they're a hybrid of a lawyer and almost like a doctor, you know.
Mm,
And there's this special blend of characteristics and DNA that go into people that are in professions. How did these get groomed into you? What were the seeds that were planted that allowed you to pick pediatrics, to pick medicine, and to eventually get to a point where you're a transformational coach for women in midlife?
my mother.
Yeah.
My mother is, or was, at the time of this recording, she's 90 years old.
Wow.
She was a emergency room nurse. And back in the day, those would have been like the 80s where you bring your kid to work, you could bring your kid into the ER, which is what I did with mom. So I just like followed her around the ER. And I remember just going like trauma bay to trauma bay to trauma bay. Doesn't it sound just in this day like crazy that
Yeah.
you
100%. But that
you're
was
like,
what we were
where's the
doing.
HIPAA compliance in that? That's
Oh, yeah,
not
the whole thing is absolutely
crazy.
lunacy. Yeah.
Anyways, after that day, I was like, Mom, I really like this. Like, I want to be a nurse like you. I want to be a nurse just like you. And my mom said, Susan, she calls me Susan, Susan, be a doctor, give the orders instead of taking the orders. And I was like, oh, okay. Like, it never had occurred to me of that. Right. And so I thought that was interesting. Also, Joe, I like never questioned it. Isn't
Yeah.
that fascinating? It's just
Yeah.
like mom said, so I did. Like what what is that?
Yeah. Right.
Right? And so it really shaped me. I was like, I love this. Mom's a nurse. She thinks doctoring would be a better fit, and so I just went for it. And she's definitely my biggest fan because I flopped the MCAT the first time around. Like the first section, I was like, have you ever walked into a test and I was like, I can't concentrate. All I can hear is the person like tapping their leg over there. Like the entrance person said, "Did you miss key?" I'm like, no, those were really my answers. And so I got to retake the MCAT a second time. And it was my mom behind me, just like really fierce faith, like, you totally got this, unwavering. Like she just knew it.
You know, the one thing with popular media and TV shows, law, medicine, those kinds of things, fire, they're the biggest things that people get into. And there's always this debate, how accurate is it? When you look at the medical world of shows that have been out there, what has been the show that has most accurately reflected the world that you experienced, or something that you would say they got it?
I don't know. I don't know that there is one for medicine. I
Okay.
would definitely say it's not Grey's Anatomy. People are not that good looking.
Right.
Like they're not like looking all that great. Like
Uh-huh.
there isn't Dr. McDreamy like sitting in
Yeah.
front of me. Um, I'm trying to think in terms of medicine. Like, have I watched a show that really reflects that? I'm sure it's out there. I don't know that anything comes to mind.
Okay. Yeah. I'm just curious because there's just so many angles of that world that I wonder, is that really happening? You know, and there's always
Hmm.
peccadillos, and I'm sure they're not totally off base, but I'm always
Correct.
curious if there's a way that would capture it. Um, so let me ask you this. If you can meet anybody on the planet right now that you find inspirational, whether it's a coach or otherwise, that might help you on your journey, who would you love to meet and talk to?
The first person that comes to mind is Sage Robbins,
Yeah.
which many people may not know, but that she's the wife of Tony Robbins.
Okay.
And Tony Robbins, I think many people in the personal development know who Tony Robbins is. He's, a coach for personal development. He's also a huge businessman, etc. And I've been in that world for a handful of years. And his wife is Sage is part of that mission. And I really feel like she embodies uh, what I would say like feminine, a beautiful balance of like feminine. I would call it like divine feminine, right? Like just really owning it, not trying to be a man to influence, but yet really embody the female power per se, the strength of that, the flex and flow. She's really shown me the possibilities of um really helping people with a very kind of softer, if you will,
Yeah.
way.
That's an interesting answer because I've never heard that anybody talk about her. Like,
Hmm.
and we all know how magnanimous Tony is at what he does and his wield of influence. So let me ask you this. What is it that gets you up every day? What is it that motivates you to do this work, to change lives, to help people, and to also take care of your soul? Because no matter what, whether it's pediatrics or coaching, you're walking into other people's worlds, and there's a lot.
Hmm.
There's a myriad of things that can be complex and possibly dark. How do you protect yourself and then do the best possible job to help people?
Hmm. Well, the way I protect myself, I will start there, is my morning me time, which is me just connecting with source, God, spirit, like me filling my cup, me like getting my, beautiful state on for the day, right?
Yeah,
That is definitely like my divine little bubble I put around myself. Just to remember that I'm safe to be seen, and I'm divinely supported to help. And I think that's what really gets me up every day is curiosity, growth. I'm always growing the things that I'm doing. I'm always learning how to help people even better. Um, and it's really just a motivation for helping. What gets me super emotional are kids.
yeah,
Like I care about your kid, Joe, and I don't even know your kid.
yeah.
Like I don't know why I care so deeply, but I do. Yeah, it's
So let
fascinating.
Yeah, it is. So let me ask you this. If you were to get into a time machine or have a dream and run into the 18-year-old version of you, getting ready to charge out into the world, and you can give that version of you a piece of advice based on this life
Hmm.
you've lived, the wisdom you've accumulated, what advice would you impart on that young version of you?
Be you.
Yeah,
Be you. Like, don't put on other masks. A lot of masks went on to make it through medicine. A lot of masculine masks, a lot of like, don't be too soft, don't be too caring, don't be too emotional, right? And the reality is like, why?
yeah,
Why not? You know, patients need that.
yeah.
Patients thank me for that.
What's interesting? I just watched a documentary about a month ago about Sally Ride. Have you seen this?
No.
And it's fascinating to see at that point in our history how many, how much the media was focused on her for being a woman and how she had to
Hmm.
deflect that all the time, and all of the questions of being emotional and can you handle it and all of these different things that a woman experiences versus a man and how are you going to deal with it in space and how absurd it got. And I think about
Hmm.
just you saying be you, like I just don't understand the disconnect, like why it was such a big deal. But at the time, I mean, growing up, I mean, the space shuttle explosion in '86 was one of the biggest points of
Wow.
my life at that point.
I remember the day.
I was in middle school, and I remember everybody was watching because Christy McAuliffe was going to teach in
Yep.
space, just that whole thing. Um, so let me ask you this. Taking that a step further, how have you approached that throughout your career? Has that been something that you've indulged or how have you dealt with that?
I think the first step is I just created my own thing because I finished residency, I did chief resident year, and then I launched my own practice. So when you're your own boss, you get to figure out how you're going to do it your way,
Mhm.
right? So that gave me a lot of room to like figure out what is my way, like what feels like medicine for me, and a lot of unlearning, right? Because I mean, what I can't speak to it now because I'm not in that world of hospitals and training and whatnot. But my experience of it was very fear based, and what I am is very love based. You know,
Yeah.
so and you still, I get why the fear is there, and it can be used as fuel to make sure that we're dotting all our I's and crossing our T's. But the thing is like you also get to like balance it,
Yeah, absolutely.
right?
So let me ask you this. I remember when I was in the first grade, and I remember the first moment that my teacher, her name was Miss Kalslerich of all names. I've never heard that name again in my life. And the moment I realized she was a human, that she was a person, that she wasn't just a teacher. Because when you're a kid, you're just locked in, and that's what their role is. And I think for a lot of people, doctors play that role in people's lives. They don't know you. So my question to you is this. If you were to walk into a room of people that have all known you as parents of patients and people that you've coached and people that have known you in a professional sense, and you could swim through that
Mm,
sea of people and go to a podium and tell them one fun story, the first concert you went to, jumping out of an airplane, outrunning a bear, some kind of a wonderful magical place you traveled to in your life, an adventure you've had, what story would you
mm.
tell that room of people, a fun story to humanize yourself?
I think the most recent one, I mean, there's so many, Joe, and
Yeah,
I already do. Like, I like take the camera. Like, if my mom is like, "Oh, sorry, my house isn't," I'm like, "Girl, look at
yeah,
this floor right here."
yeah.
Like, I don't know. I feel like I do that every day. She's like, "Thank you so much." Like, of course, I'm a mom.
Yeah.
Um, but probably one of the funniest recent stories is I said yes to climbing Mount Washington, which in the United States is, I think it's like number one of the 20 in the world. It's like the number 23 in terms of steep.
Yeah.
It's like, it's insanity. It's to bike up. I'm talking bike up because my husband has done it before. He's like, I really want you to do this with me. So I trained for a whole year, or yeah, a whole year. We got there and like thunderstorms or whatever, like hurricane force winds are on the top. And I'm literally like sitting around with a bunch of guys and they're like all bummed out. And I'm like, yes, yes, we're not doing this. We're like going home. Yes, I'm not going to die on this mountain. Yes. Like I was so excited. And as soon as we were driving out, my husband's like, promise me you'll come back with me next year. And I was like, yes,
Of
I'll come
course.
back with me. Yes.
Wow. That's
And
cool.
so we did come back and it was a beautiful day. It was not hurricane force winds. And I really had prepped by that time for like 2 years, and it's insanity. And in some ways, I was like, I have no right to be on that hill. But that race up that mountain, which for me, like he's in the front,
Yeah.
he's like racing with the real people. I'm back and I call it the Clownsville. Like
Yeah.
I'm back in the Clownsville, you know? And it was so hysterical, Joe. It was such a representation of life,
Yeah.
right? Like you see one guy, his legs are so shaky, he just can't keep his legs from shaking. He has to get off his bike. His legs are still shaking. He's out. Like you see him out later out
Yeah.
in the race, right? One woman, like I was just trying to bike, like I'm up, like just trying to like, I mean, I'm so out of breath. My heart is like pounding on my chest. And she goes into a ditch because we're on a mountain, right? So like you ditch it before the cliff. She goes in a ditch. And I honestly took everything, Joe, for me to be like, are you okay?
Yeah.
Because I did not want to get off my bike. I
Sure.
was like, girl, I don't know if I can help you right now. And she had like both arms and both legs up. And she's like, yep, I'm okay. And
Wow.
like further up, there was this one man, and he was like, oh, that's the other thing, the age of these people. Like I'm in my 50s, I was like one of four in my age group. This man easily in his 60s, if not 70s. He had like one shoe in his hand because his shoe had a malfunction. He had the bike over his thing. He's like,
Yeah.
I'm getting to the finish line. I'm like, oh my God, this is
Yeah.
amazing.
Oh, yeah.
And it was everything. And I was on my bike and off my bike and on my bike and off my bike. When I got to the top, I that was euphoria.
Oh, yeah.
First of all, I was like, I just finished that. But it's the most interesting thing, Joe, which is what I would share. How many hours did it take me to take away what I had just done? Do you think? Like, how long did I live in that euphoria? I just kind of gave it away, but how long do you think I live in that euphoria? Like, I trained 2 years, I climbed this really hard thing. It wasn't perfect, it was really messy. I got on and off my bike, but at the end, I crossed that finish line on my bike. It was euphoria. I was like, this feels like a touch with God right
Yeah.
now. This
Yeah.
feels so good,
Yeah.
right? And I'm telling you, it was by the time we had dinner and we were breaking bread with dinner, I had already ripped down, like, why did I have to get off my bike? Why couldn't I have done that? Like, I was already like,
Yeah.
and that was like, wow, Sue. And that's what I would teach people. Like, that's what I would share is like,
Yeah.
isn't it fascinating how quick our mind can just take something away like that if we
Yeah.
don't control our mind, like if we
Absolutely.
don't focus on like what's great about that instead of just looking in the gap like why like why can't I be like the woman who won? I mean, we have totally different physiques, right?
Yeah.
She's about a decade younger than me. I would never be able to do that. I was like, why can't I? Because you're not. That's
Right.
not you. Like
Right.
you were meant to be back with the clowns. Like,
Yeah.
that was, you know. So I just think that's what I would share. It's just like fascinating, and that's how powerful the mind is. Like the
Yeah.
mind can be so powerful that you're connecting, you're euphoric, and then boom, it's going to take you out of it.
Yeah. Absolutely. That's a great story. What a learning moment in life.
Mm.
So let me ask you this: of everything that you've done in your life up to this point, what are you the proudest of?
Oh, for sure, my children.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's just no comparison. I could weep at like how proud I am of them. Yeah.
So let me ask you this. Everyone has a perception of you, family, friends, clients, everyone that knows you, but you run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
Hmm. I think I'm a kind, empathetic soul. I think I'm a child of God doing her best.
So if anyone wants to hire you, anybody has any questions, any of the good business, where do they go?
DrCMcCreadie.com.
Okay, excellent. I will put that in the show notes. What a wonderful story. Thank you so much. Thank you for your time.
Hmm.
Best of luck
Thank you,
with everything.
Joe.
I appreciate
Thank
it.
you, Joe.
Absolutely.